Guys, welcome to my live channel. So this is more of saying a very big thank you to my fans, those that have been so much support of me over the time, those who watch my videos without any form of hesitation, share my videos, like my videos, make time to always support what I do. I'd like to say a very big thank you for you all. Yeah. So this is my first time of going live on YouTube. Yeah. So this is my first time of going live on YouTube, and I'll be doing this more often. More often. So if you're a fan of what I do, please do not hesitate to support me on the two way by liking, sharing my live chat and everything. So yeah, with me, this is a Beauty by Nature Vitamin C serum. Just finished taking my shower, so I forgot to use my face. It's hot. Oh. This is my hair. I love it so much. I've not been able to even think about losing it. They say, do what you like best, do what you like best, do what you like best. Now I'm doing what I like best too. You're welcome to my live chat. This is a moment of appreciation to say everything. Big thank you to everyone who has always loved what I do. So please, if you're joining me, do not hesitate to please share my video. Invite your friends to subscribe to my channel. Okay. I think I'm done with this. Oh, start with that messy syrup. It's hot. So this is Beauty by Nature. This is it. Beauty by Nature product. Oh. So you're welcome to my live chat. Welcome you to my amazing channel. Here speaking with you is Lady ATV. Yes. Lady ATV. So if you're finding your way to this channel, I welcome you specially because today we do so many amazing things on this channel. So many amazing things. So I want to carry you all along. Oh, right back. Okay, I think I'm fine now. So feeling hot. Man, it's okay. So this or this. I don't even know what I'm doing. I really like this. Okay, so let's dive into the main thing. Who remember this book? The Independent, right? Independent. We actually read this book when I was about to write Jump. Is it Jump or like yeah, Jump, yes. Yeah? I can't even remember, but is it that Jump or like that was when we read this book, and I've decided to come and share the importance of this book with you guys. Trust me, you all will definitely love it. This book was written by Sarah Ladipo Moniyinka. Yes, Sarah Ladipo. And it's a very, very interesting. I don't know if I should be doing book reviews on my live chat. I'm just trying to figure out what I'll be doing on my live chat, but with time, I'll get to know that. But for now, enjoy the amazing comedy skit I've been drumming on that channel. For now, with time, I would think of something reasonable I'll be doing to during my live chat videos. Yes, I'll be thinking of so many amazing things, but I'm still trying to figure out, I'm still trying to know what I should be doing during this life. Because I can't just be sitting here. I need to engage you guys now. Come on. Of course, I need to engage you guys. So I need to find something engaging during this period of time. So for now, we'll be talking about this, the independent. Okay, I think we'll be reading it together. Yeah, we'll be reading it together. So after that, we're gonna talk about what we learned from it. But when I read it last, it was very, very interesting. God, it was really very interesting. So over the time, I haven't been able to remember what it is again. But trust me, it was really very interesting. So our topic for today is going to be this. That was I read this book last few years ago. That was not about when I was about to write my job. Is it that my job or my work? I can't even remember, but it's between the two. So I still have it since then. Yes, because I find it very interesting. Yeah, I find it very interesting. So before I start, I'm going to reintroduce myself again. My name is actually Adeze Grace Asugo, popularly known as Lady ATV. So if you're finding your way to my channel, welcome. I welcome you especially to this amazing channel of mine. Welcome to my channel, and stay tuned because so many amazing things are going to be happening in this channel over time, especially through my live chat with you guys. So let's start. Okay, today we're starting from the chapter 1. Yeah, so okay, let's start. One could begin with just the heat and the purple bougainvillea. One might even begin with the smell of rotten mangoes. Chose by the side of the road where flies hummed and green-bellied lizard bobbed their orange heads while loitering in the sun. But Tayo did not notice this. Instead, he walked in silence. Oblivious to his surroundings, with a smile on his face, he thought of the night. Okay, I think this book was talking about Tayo. Yeah, yeah. It's talking about Tayo, and about it's about education when he traveled out, leaving his girlfriend behind, all of that. Like I said earlier, it's a very, well, should I know? Should I have another one? Should I? I don't even know what I'm doing. Okay, okay, okay. Fine. Let's start with this. Woman at point zero. A woman at point zero. Yeah. See, I'm sorry I couldn't continue with this. I don't know why, but we can do this some other time. Let's do this instead. This book was actually a gift given to me by my friend, my very good friend. This book, it's sometimes when I talk about this book, I feel like crying because it's talk about how women are being humiliated in the society because people feel that women are less of human. So reading this book, I felt really bad. I can't even explain how I felt reading this book. But whatever thing it is, I actually learned a lot from reading this book, Woman Upon Zero. I learned a lot from reading this book. I just wish we can read it together and talk about it. Yes, talk about it. This book is trying to define of it tries to talk about a woman who has no family. I mean, no, she actually has a family. She has a father. I'm not trying to be discriminatory, but I'm trying to talk about what the book talks about, you know. She has a father. Her father is actually a Muslim. Father and Muslim she's from a Muslim home, but the Muslim home where she came from never regarded woman as a human. They treated woman as trash, especially her mom. Ah, mom, reading this book, I cried. I wept because I felt so emotional trying to figure out what this lady actually passed through in life. Well, according to her, she said she's a very successful Ashawo. But during those period of time, she felt bad. The title is Woman at Point Zero. See, Woman at Point Zero. That is the title. Woman at Point Zero. It's really very interesting. Honestly, I felt really bad trying to read the book. I just wish I can explain everything that happened in the book, but and this book was written by Nawal El Sadawi. Yes, it's written by Nawal El Sadawi. Title being Woman Upon Zero. I felt really bad watching passed from her home to her uncle's tent to the streets. Everything. It's really, 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 really disheartening. But what pained me the most is that, well, actually, it's not, sometimes it's not her fault, but that really hurts me. What's even, she shouldn't have killed that man. Since she has gotten her freedom at last, she shouldn't have killed that man, but at some point, even if she didn't kill the man, she will still be suffering the same thing because she has been seen as that. So I don't know, but let's just start. Let's just start. So I'll be reading it out. I don't want to read about it also. I just want to start from chapter 1. Yes. So the title of the book is Woman at Point Zero. I love reading books. I love reading books, like especially the ones that teaches a lesson. So fast forward to the page 1. I don't want to start reading about this and that. I just want to move to the chapter. Okay. Okay, let's start. It said, there's the story of a real woman. I met her in Quantaya prison a few years ago. I was doing research on the personalities of a group of women prisoners and detainees convicted or accused of various offenses. The prison doctor told me that this woman has been sentenced to death for killing a man. Interesting, right? Yet she was not like the other female murderers held in the prison. You will never meet anyone like her in or out of prison. She refuses all visitors and won't speak to anyone. She usually leaves her food untouched and remains wide awake until dawn. Sometimes the prison warder observes her as she sits staring vacantly into space for hours. One day, she asked for pen and paper, then spent hours hunched over them without moving. The warder could not tell whether she was writing a letter or something else. Perhaps she was not writing anything at all. So just sit, get a popcorn, sit. I'll be reading this out for you. So at the end of the day, we'll just talk about the lesson. Yes, I don't know how long it's going to take us to finish this book, but I just want to read it. I'll be the one reading it out for you guys. Yes. So at the end of the day, we talk about, okay, if you read chapter 1, we'll talk about it, chapter 2, we'll talk about it until we're done with this book. So after this book, we'll be migrating to another book entirely. So for now, let's start with this Woman at Point Zero. Yes, Woman at Point Zero. So now it's talking about a researcher who actually visited a prison, found a woman who's always feeling sober. You understand? She doesn't talk to anyone. She doesn't accept any visitor. She's just there. She's always there. She doesn't, sometimes she doesn't eat. You understand? So one day she requested for a pen and a paper. So nobody knew what she was doing with the pen and paper. She just sat there with the pen and paper trying to, do whatever thing she feels like. So she remains wide awake until dawn. She doesn't sleep. Sometimes the prison warder observes her as she sits staring vacantly into the space for hours. One day she asked for pen and paper. Then spent hours hunched over them without moving. The warder could not tell whether she was writing a letter or something else. Perhaps she was not writing anything at all. I asked the prison doctor, "Would she see me?" I shall try to persuade her to speak to you for a while. He said, she might agree if I explain you are a psychiatrist, okay, and not one of the public prosecutor's assistants. She refuses to answer my question. She even refused to sign an appeal to the president so that her sentence might be commuted to imprisonment for life. So talking about this woman, she doesn't want to see anybody. She's just there. So the psychiatrist, who's also the Shasha, asks if can be able to see him. It's okay. The prison doctor said he's going to try his best in order to persuade her to see him. But for now, he cannot tell. So, sentenced to be committed for imprisonment. Who made out the appeal to her? I asked. I did, he said. To be quite honest, I do not really feel she is a murderer. If you look into her face, her eyes, you will never believe so gentle woman can commit murder. Who says murder does not require that a person be gentle? He stared at me in surprise for a brief moment and then laughed nervously. Have you ever killed anybody? Am I a gentlewoman? I replied. He turned his head to one side, pointed to a tiny window, and said, "That's her cell. I'll go and persuade her to come down and meet you." After a while, he came back without her. Feathers had refused to see me. So the woman's name is Feathers. The woman's name is Feathers. So I was supposed to examine some other women prisoners that day, but instead I got into my car and drove away. Back home, I could not do anything. I had to revise the draft of my latest book, but I was incapable of concentrating. I could think of nothing but the woman called Feathers, who in 10 days time will be led to the gallows. You know what that means? So he said when he got home, he couldn't concentrate on anything, he couldn't do anything. He was busy thinking of the woman he actually met in the prison who has refused to talk to anybody, you know. So let's continue. Okay. Early next morning, I found myself at the prison gate again. I asked the warder to let me see Feathers, but she said, "It's no use, doctor. She will never agree to see you. He asked why. They are going to hang her in few days' time. What news are you or anybody else to her? Leave her alone. There was a note of anger in her voice. She gave me a look. Interesting. She gave me a look, child you trot, as though I was the one who would hang Fedos a few days' time. I have nothing to do with the authorities, either here or any other place, I said. That's what they all say, she said angrily. Why are you so worked up? I asked. Do you think Fedos is innocent? That she didn't kill him? Okay. She replied with an added fury. Murderer or not, she's an innocent woman and does not deserve to be hanged. They are the ones that ought to be hanged. They, who are they? She looked at me with suspicion and said, tell me rather, who are you? Did they send you to her? What do you mean by they? I asked again. She looked around cautiously, almost with fear, and stepped back away from me. They? You mean they? You mean to say they don't know them? Okay, you mean to say you don't know them either? No, I said. She entirely in short, sarcastic laugh and walked off. I heard her muttering to herself, how can she be the only one who does not know them? Okay, now the woman is okay. Now the prisoner is actually the prison warder is actually trying to think maybe the people that sentenced Fedos to death actually sent someone to come and look or come and see how she's doing in the prison, without knowing that the person, the researcher who came to see Fedos in the prison, he doesn't even know her, doesn't even know about the case. So he's just trying to find out why such an innocent woman is in the prison, what she's doing there. You understand? Just trying to find out what she's doing there. What could be the problem? You understand? This story is very interesting. We're just starting. We're just starting. I just wish so many people will join us, at least to learn. You understand? To learn. Okay? You mean to say they don't know, okay? I returned to the prison several times, but all my attempts to see Fedos were of no avail. I felt somehow that my research was now in jeopardy. Okay? As a matter of fact, my whole life seemed to be threatened with failure. My self-confidence began to badly shaking, and I went through difficult moments. It looks to me as though this woman who had killed a human being and was shortly to be killed herself, was much better person than I. Compared to her, I was nothing but a small insect crawling upon the land amidst millions of other insects. Okay, said, whenever I remember the expression in the eyes of the warder or the prison doctor, okay, and prison doctor, as they spoke of her complete indifference of everything, her attitude of total rejection, and above all, her refusal to sue me, the feeling that I was helpless and of no significance grew on me. A question kept turning around and round in my mind increasingly. What sort of woman was she? Since she had rejected me, did that mean she was a better person than me? But then, she had also refused to send an appeal to the president, asking him to protect her from the gallows. Could that signify that she was better than the head of state? I was seized by a feeling very close to certainty, yet difficult to explain, that she was, in fact, better than all the men and women we normally hear about or see or even know. I tried to overcome my inability to sleep, but another thought started to occupy my mind and keep me awake. When she refused to see me, did she know who I was? Interesting. Or had rejected me without knowing. The following morning, I found myself back once more in the prison. He has to go back again after all this thinking, everything. When he went home, so he had to go back there again to try one more time. Okay, I had no intention of trying to meet Fedos, for I had given up all hope. I was looking for the warder or the prison doctor. The doctor had not yet arrived, but I found the warder. Did Fedos tell you she knew me? I asked her. No, she did not tell me anything. The warder replied, but she does know you. How do you know that she knows me? I can sense her. I just stood there as though turned to stone. The warder left me to get on with her work. I tried to move to go towards my car and leave, but in vain. A strange feeling of heaviness weighed down my heart. My body drained. My body drained my legs to their power, a feeling heavier than the weight of the whole earth, as though, are you listening? As though instead of standing above its surface, I was now lying somewhere beneath it. The sky also had undergone a change. Its color had turned to black, like that of the earth, and it was pressing down upon me with its added load. This was what it felt when he tried to leave the prison once more. So it was a feeling I had known only once before, many years ago. I had fallen in love with a man who did not love me. Okay, so he's trying to explain what it felt like. You understand? So he said what it felt like that day was like it has only happened to her once when she fell in love. Mhm. Okay, so let's can you just leave me alone, whatever. So I felt rejected not only by him, not only by one person amongst the millions that people the vast world, but by every living being or thing on earth, by the vast world itself. I straightened my shoulder, stood as upright as I could, and took a deep breath. The weight of my head lifted a little. I began to look around me and to feel amazed at finding myself in the prison at the early hours. At the early hours. Okay, the water was bent double, scrubbing the tiled floor of the corridor. I was overcome by unusual contempt towards her. She was no more than a woman cleaning the prison floor. She could not read or write and knew nothing about psychology. So how was it that I had so easily believed that feeling could be true? Interesting. Fedos did not actually say she knew me. The warder merely sensed it. Why should that indicate that Fedos really knew me? If she had rejected me without knowing who I was no reason for me to feel hurt. Her refusal to see me was not directed against me personally, but against the world and everybody in it. Hmm, interesting. I started to walk towards my car. Another one. I started to walk towards my car with the intention of leaving. Subjective feelings such as those that had taken bold of me were not worthy of research in science. I almost smiled at myself and I opened the door of the car. The touch of its surface helped to restore my identity, my self-esteem as a doctor. Whatever the circumstances, a doctor was surely to be preferred to a woman condemned to death for murder. My normal attitude towards myself, an attitude which really deserted me, gradually returned. I turned the ignition key and pressed my foot down on the accelerator, firmly stamping out the sudden feeling, which occasionally haunts me in moments of failure, of mainly being a significant insect, crawling on the earth amidst myriad of other similar insects. I heard a voice behind me. So that is it's just explaining what after visiting for the third time, she was done. She was like, Omo, let me come and leave these people. I'll go Jerry. After all, now research I be, you understand? So she just decided not to let that worry her again. So she left. So when she was about leaving, okay, I heard a voice behind me, rising over the sound of the engine. Doctor, doctor, it was the warder. She ran up to me, panting heavily. Her gasping voice reminded me of the voice I often heard in my dreams. Her mouth had grown bigger, and so her lips, which kept opening and closing with a mechanical movement, like a swing door. I heard her say, Fedos, doctor, Fedos wants to see you. Her breast was heaving up and down. Her breathing had become a series of rapid gasps, and her eyes and face reflected a violent emotion. If the President of the Republic in prison had asked to see me, she could not have been swept by such an overpowering emotion. My breathing in tongue quickened, as though by infection, or to be more precise. I fell out of breath, for my heart was beating more strongly than it had ever done before. I do not know how I climbed out of the car, nor how I followed so closely behind the warder that I sometimes overlook her or moved ahead. I walked with a rapid, effortless pace, as though my legs were no longer carrying my body. I was full of wonderful feelings, proud, elated, happy. The skies were blue with a blueness I could capture in my eyes. I held the whole world in my hands. It was mine. It was a feeling I had known only once before. Many years ago, I was on my way to meet first man I loved for the first time. Could just explain how she felt like. Okay, I stopped for a moment in front of Fedos, in Fedos' sex to catch my breath and adjust the collar of my dress. As I was trying to regain my composure, to return to my normal state, to the realization that I was a researcher in science, a psychiatrist or something of the kind, I heard the key grinding the door, okay, brutal, screeching. The sound restored me to myself. My hand tightened its grasp and led her back. And a voice within me said, "Who is this woman called Fedos?" She's only, but the words within me stopped short. Suddenly, we were face to face. I stood rooted to the ground, silent, motionless. I did not hear the beat of my heart, nor the key as it turned in the lock. Closing the heavy door behind me, it was a door I died the moment her eyes looked into mine. They were eyes that killed, like a knife, probing, cutting deep down inside. Their look steady, unwavering, not the slightest movement of a lid, nor the smallest twitch of a muscle in the face. Interesting. I was brought back suddenly by a voice. The voice was hers, steady, cutting deep down inside, cold as knife, not the slightest wavering in its tone, not the smallest shiver of a note. I heard her say, "Close the window." I moved up the window blindly and closed it, then cast a bemused look around. There was nothing in the cell, not a bed or a chair or anything on which I could sit. I heard her say, "Sit down on the ground." Now, okay, now Ferdius has agreed, the woman in the prison has agreed to meet with the doctor or the researcher or the psychiatrist, whatever. Now, when he went to the cell to meet Ferdius, so like I said, she was asked to close the window. After she's done closing the window, Ferdius asked her to sit down. So Ferdius wants to narrate. Now we are about to dive into Ferdius' story of how she got into the prison. So all these things I'll be reading is how this researcher got to know about Ferdius in the prison and all that. So now we are about to dive into Ferdius' story or what actually brought Ferdius to the prison. You understand? So please listen. I just want all of us to learn from this story as a woman. You know, each time I remember the last time I read this story, I feel like crying. But sometimes it could be the reality. You understand? Like people always say, there's nothing that happened that doesn't have a time of reality in it. So before the writer or the author of this book would write this story, there must be something. There must be something in it. So I just want us to learn from the story. Okay? Now, say, close the window and move up to the window. Okay, we've done this. So sit down on the ground. My body bent down and sat on the ground. It was January. The ground was bare, but I felt no cold, like walking in one sleep. The ground under me was cold. The same touch, the same consistency, the same naked cold. Yeah, the cold did not touch me, did not reach me. It was the cold of the sea in the ground. I swam. Okay, I swam through its waters. I was naked and knew not how to swim, but neither I felt like cold. I felt it's cold. No, drowned in its waters. Her voice too was like the voice one hears in a dream. It was close to me, yet seems to come from afar, spoke from a distance and seems to arise from nearby. For we do not know from where these voices arise, from above or below, to our left or our right. We might even think they come from the depth of the earth, drawn from the rooftop or from the heavens, or they might even flow from all directions like air moving in space reaches the ears. But this was not dream. This was not air flowing into my ears. The woman sitting on the ground in front of me was a real woman, and the voice filling my ear with its sound, echoing in a cell where the windows and the doors were tightly shut, could only be her voice, the voice of feathers. Ah, but is it a true life story? I really cannot tell if it's a true life story, but sometimes the story feels like, yeah, I think, yes. Yes, I think there was a base. The author mentioned it that is a true life story, but I never can tell. But there's something about stories, even movies and anything, but anything at all. You understand? If a story is being told, let's say a story is being told, a movie is being acted, there's 20 to 50% chances that most of those stories being told in that book or anything could be true. I think there was a place, let's keep reading. There's a place the author mentioned that it's a true life story. It's actually a true life story, yes. I remember. It's actually a true life story. But you definitely learn from the story because it's a very interesting one. Very, very interesting one. Okay, let's dive into the chapter 2. Let me speak. Do not interrupt. Now, Fedus is about to tell her story from the chapter 2. You understand? So now, Fedus is trying to tell the doctor researcher that let her speak. She shouldn't interrupt her. So let's dive into Fedus' story and how Fedus got into the prison. Let's start. Said, let me speak. Do not interrupt me. I have no time to listen to you. They are coming to take me at 6 o'clock this evening. So she was to be executed that day. Be executed that day. Okay, tomorrow morning. Tomorrow morning, I shall no longer be here, nor will I be in this place known to man. This journey to a place unknown to everybody on this earth fills me with pride. All my life, I have been searching for something that would fill me with pride, make me feel superior to everyone else, including kings, priests, and rulers. Each time I pick up a newspaper and found a picture of a man who was one of them, I would spit on it. I knew I was only spitting on a piece of newspaper which I needed for covering the kitchen shelves. Nevertheless, I spat and then left the spit where it was to dry. Anyone who saw me spitting on the picture might think I knew that particular man personally, but I did not. I'm just one woman, and there is no single woman who could possibly know all the men who get their pictures published in the newspapers. For after all, I was only successful prostitute. And no matter how successful a prostitute is, she cannot get to know all the men. However, every single man I did every single man I did get to know filled me with one desire to lift my hand and bring a smashing down on his face. Wow. But because I'm a woman, I have never had the courage to lift my hand. And because I'm a prostitute, I had my face under layers of makeup since I was successful. This is further story now. My makeup was always one of the best and most expensive kind, just like the makeup of respectable upper class women. I always had my hair done by stylists who tendered their service only to upper class society women. The color I chose for lipstick was always natural and serious, so that it neither disguised nor accentuated the seductiveness of my lips. The skillful lines penciled around my eyes hinted at just the right combination of attraction and rejection favored by the wives of men in high positions of authority. Only my makeup, my hair, and my expensive shoes were upper class. With my secondary school certificate and suppressed desire, I belonged to the middle class. By birth, I was lower class. My father, a poor peasant farmer who could neither read nor write, knew very few things in life: how to grow crops, how to sell buffalo poisoned by his enemy before he died, how to exchange his virgin daughters for a dowry when there was still time, how to be quicker than his neighbor in stealing from the field once the crop was ripe, how to bend over the herdsman's hand and pretend to kiss it, how to beat his wife and make her bite the dust each night. Now, this is Fedo's story. So he's trying to tell her story to the doctor. Every Friday morning, he will put on a clean galabia and head for the mosque to attend the weekly prayer. The prayer over, I would see him walking with the other men like himself as they commented on the Friday sermon, on how convincing and eloquent the imam had been to a degree that he had surpassed the unsurpassable. For it was not verily true that stealing was a sin, and killing was a sin, and defaming the honor of a woman was a sin, and injustice was a sin, and beating another human being was a sin. Moreover, who could deny that to be obedient was a duty, and to love one's country too, that love of the ruler and love of Allah were one and indivisible. Allah protect our ruler for many long years, and may he remain a source of inspiration and strength to our country, the Arab nation, and all mankind. I could see them walking through the narrow, winding lanes, nodding their heads in admiration and approval of everything His Holiness the Imam had said. I will watch them as they continue to nod their heads, rub their hands one against the other, wipe their brows while all the time invoking Allah's name, calling upon His blessings, repeating His holy words in guttural, subdued tone, muttering and whispering without a moment's respite. On my head, I carried a heavy earthenware jar full of water. Under its weight, my neck would sometimes jerk backwards, okay, or to the left or to the right, how to exert myself to maintain it balanced on my head and keep it from falling. I kept my legs moving in the way my mother had taught me, so that my neck remained upright. I was still young at that time, and my breasts were not yet rounded. I knew nothing about men, but I could hear them as they invoked Allah's name and called upon His blessings, or repeated His holy words in a subdued guttural tone. I would observe them nodding their heads or rubbing their hands one against the other, or coughing or clearing their throat with a rapid noise, or constantly scratching under the armpits and between the thighs. I saw them as they watched what went on round them with wary, doubting, steady eyes, ready to pounce, full of aggressiveness that seemed strangely savage. Sometimes I could not distinguish which one of them was my father. He resembled them so closely it was difficult to tell. So one day I asked my mother about him. How was it that she had given birth to me without a father? First she beat me, then she brought a woman who was carrying a small knife or maybe a razor blade. They cut off a piece of flesh from between my thighs. I cried all night. Next morning, my mother did not send me to the field. She usually made me carry a load of manure on my head and take it to the field. I preferred to go to the field rather than stay in our hut. Therefore, I could play with the goats, climb over the water wheel, and swim with the boys in the stream. A little boy called Mohammed used to pinch me underwater and follow me into the small shelter made of maize stalks. He would make me lie down beneath a pile of straw and lift my galabia. We played at bride and groom. For some part of my body, where exactly I did not know, would come to a sensation of sharp pleasure. Later, I would close my eyes and feel with my hands for the exact spot. The moment I touched it, I would realize that I had felt the sensation before. Then we would start to play again until the sun went down, and we could hear his father's voice calling to him from the neighboring field. I would try to hold him back, but he would run off, promising to come the next day. I see. So now, this is this is more of a lesson to us and also to our mothers out there. Yes, most time it's not just about giving birth. It's not just about birthing kids. It's not about you know bringing kids to this world without having to look after them. Look at what this girl started passing through when she was still underage, when she not even know anything, when she doesn't even know anything. Just we usually call it play, 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 play. Just carry her, enter somewhere, start touching her where it's not supposed to be touched, which is very, very, very bad. Let's continue. But my mother no longer sent me to the field before the sun had started to appear in the sky. She would nudge me in the shoulder with her fist so that I would awaken, pick up the earthward jar, and go off to field with water. Once back, I would sweep under the animals and then make rolls of dog cake, which I left in the sun to dry. On baking day, I would knead dough and make bread. To knead the dough, I squatted on the ground with the trough between my legs. At regular intervals, I lifted the elastic mass up into the air and let it fall back into the trough. The heat of the oven was full on my face, singing the edges of my hair. My galabia often slipped up my thighs, but I paid no attention until the moment when I would glimpse my uncle's hand The year when I placed my uncle's hand, moving slowly from behind the book he was reading to touch my leg. The next moment, I could feel it traveling up my thigh with a caution, steadily trembling movement. Every time there was the sound of a footstep at the entrance to our house, his hand will withdraw quickly. But whenever everything around us lapsed into silence, broken only every now and then by the snap of dry twigs between my fingers as I fed the oven, and the sound of his regular breathing reaching me from behind the book, so that I could not tell whether he was snoring quietly in his sleep or wide awake and panting. His hand would continue to press against my thigh. Did they hear? With a grasping, almost brutal instant. He he was doing to me what now this is talking about the uncle. Yes, the mother is actually the root to the problem. Yes, you're very right. Because how can you be with a man who beats you every now and then? You're still there with a kind kid. See, this story, I'm going, even if I didn't finish this story today, we're still going to continue tomorrow. Or yes, tomorrow. But I'll put the time down. You understand? So the mother is actually the root of the problem. Now, the Mohammed of a guy is doing his own. Now the uncle is also doing his own. You understand? So he was doing to me what Mohammed had done to me before. In fact, he was doing even more. Now it's the uncle. The uncle is doing to her what Mohammed usually do. So the uncle is even doing more, like what more of what Mohammed is doing. Okay, okay. But I no longer felt the strong sensation of pleasure that radiated from unknown and yet familiar part of my body. I closed my eyes and tried to reach the pleasure I had known before, but in vain. It was as if I could no longer recall the exact spot from which it used to arise, or as though a part of my being was gone and would never return. My uncle was not young. He was as much older than I was. He used to travel to Cairo alone, attend classes in El Azhar, and study at a time when I was still a child and had not yet learned to read or write. My uncle would put a sharp pencil between my fingers and make me write on a slate. Alif, Ba, Gim, Ba. I don't know. Sometimes he made me repeat after him. Alif has nothing on her. Ba's got one dot underneath. Gin got a dot in the middle. That has nothing. Okay, that's what the uncle normally taught her to do. He would nod his head as he recited from the 1,000 verses poem of Ibn Malik, just as though he was reciting from the Quran, and I would repeat each letter after him and nod my head in the same way. Once the holidays were over, my uncle would climb on the back of the donkey and set off for the Delta railway station. I followed him behind, carrying his big basket, packed full of eggs, cheese and bread cakes, topped with his books and clothes, all along the way until we got to the station. My uncle would not cease talking to me about his room at the end of Mohammed Ali Street, near the Citadel, about Air Azhar, at Tabak Square. The trams, the people who lived in Cairo, at moments he would sing in a sweet voice, his body swaying rhythmically with the movement of the donkey. I abandoned here not on the high seas, yet on the dry land. Thou hast left me. I battered thee not for shining gold, yet for worthless straw. Though this saw me, all my long lines, all my eyes, all. Okay, that's the song the uncle normally sing though. When my uncle would climb, okay, when my uncle would clamber onto the train and buy me farewell, I would cry and beg him to take me with him to Cairo. But my uncle would ask, "What will you do in Cairo, Fedris?" And I will reply, "I will go to Air Hazard, study like you." Then he would laugh and explain that Air Hazard was only for men. And I would cry and hold on his hand as the train started to move, but he would pull it away with a force and suddenness that made me fall flat on my face. So I would retrace my step with bent head, pounding the shape of my toes as I walked along the country road, wondering about myself as the question went around in my mind. Who was I? Who was my father? Was I going to spend my life sweeping the dung out from under the animals, carrying manures on my head, kneading dough and baking bread. This is a curious child. This is a child that has a future. This is a child that wants to prosper. This is a child that wants to go far. He said each time this his uncle comes and goes, she'll be left alone, thinking this is the same uncle that used to harass her. Okay, let's continue. Back in my father's house, I stayed at the north walls like a stranger who had never entered it before. I looked around almost in surprise, as though I had not been born here, but had suddenly dropped from the skies or emerged from somewhere deep down in the earth to find myself in a place where I did not belong. In a home which was not mine, born from a father who was not my father, and from a mother who was not my mother. Was it my uncle's talk of Cairo and the people who lived there that had changed me? Now, each time she escorts her uncle and go back home, she'll look around where she came from. She'll be like, who am I? What am I doing there? God, is this how I'm going to live my life? You know, someone who has a mind of change, someone who wants to leave poverty. You understand? She was so determined, but she doesn't know what to do. No help. Instead, all she got from people around her is molestation. You understand? From her uncle down to Mohammed and all that. And the root of all this, just like you said, Oana, is her mom. Is her mom, yes. Because how can you give birth to a child without future? God, I mean, how does people even do that? Like bringing a soul to life without future, no plan, nothing, just bring the child back to life. That's very unfair to that child. Honestly, it is very, very unfair. Let's continue. Was I really the daughter of my mother, or was my mother someone else? Or was I born the daughter of my mother and later changed into someone else? This was her thought whenever she got home. Or had my mother been transformed into another woman who resembled her so closely that I could not tell the difference? I tried to recall what my mother had looked like the first time I saw her. I can remember two eyes. I can remember her eyes in particular. I can describe their color or their shape. They were eyes that I watched. They were eyes that that watched me. Even if I disappeared from their views, they could see me and follow me wherever I go rather. So if I faltered while learning to walk, they could hold me up. Every time I tried to walk, I felt a force to push me from behind so that I fell forward, or a weight from in front to seems to lean on me so that I fell backwards. It was something like a pressure of the air wanting to crush me, something like the pull of the air trying to suck me down into its depths. And in the midst of it all, there I was, struggling, straining my arms and legs in an attempt to stand up, but I kept falling, buffeted by the contradictory forces that kept pulling me in different directions, like an object thrown into a limitless sea. Without shores and without a bed, slashed by the waters when it starts to sink, and by the wind if it starts to float, forever sinking and rising between the sea and the sky, with nothing to hold on to except the two eyes to which I clung with all my battery's down. Wait, fine. Two eyes, okay. Mm-hmm. I do not know whether they were wide or narrow, nor can I recall if they were surrounded by lashes or not. All I can remember are two rings of intense white around two circles of intense black. I only had to look into them for the white to become whiter and the black even blacker, as though sunlight was pouring into them from some magical source, neither on earth nor in the sky, for the earth was pitch black and the sky dark as night, with no sun and no moon. Okay, I could tell I could tell she was my mother. How do I not know? So I crawled up to her, seeking warmth from her body. Our hut was cold, yet in winter my father used to shift my straw mats and my pillow to the small room facing north and occupy my corner in the oven room. Used to used to abandon me alone and go to my father. Okay, my mother used to abandon me alone and go to my father to keep him warm. In summer, I would see her sitting at his feet with a tin mug in her hand as she washed his leg with cold water. When I grew a little older, my father put the mug in my hand and taught me how to wash his legs with water. I had, I had not replaced my mother and did the thing she used to do. My mother was no longer there. My mother was no longer there, but instead there was another woman who hit me on my head, on my hand, and took the mug away from me. My father told me she was my mother. In fact, she looked exactly like my mother. The same long garment, the same face, and the same way of moving. But when I used to look into her eyes, I could feel she was not my mother. Now the mother was no longer there. I don't know if the mother died. I don't know what happened, but let's read on. Okay. But when I used to look into her eyes, I could feel she was not my mother. They were not the eyes that held me up each time I was on the point of falling. They were not the two rings of pure white surrounding two circles of intense black, where the white would become even whiter and the black even blacker. Every time I look into them, as though the light of the sun or the moon kept flowing through them. Interesting. No light seems ever to touch the eyes of this woman. Even when the day was radiant and the sun at its very brightest, one day I looked her head between my hands and turned it so that the sun fell directly on her face. But her eyes remained dull, impervious to its light, like two extinguished lamps. I stayed awake all night, weeping alone, trying to muffle my sobs so that they would not disturb my little brothers and sisters sleeping on the floor beside me. For like most people, I had many brothers and sisters. They were like chicks that multiplies in the spring, shivers in winter, and lose their feathers. And then in summer, I was drinking with diarrhea, waste away quickly, and one by creep into a corner and die. When one of his female children died, my father would eat his supper. My mother would wash his legs, and then he would go to sleep, just as he did every night. When the child that died was a boy, you see, now she said, for example, if a female child died, the father feels nothing. What the father does is just normal to eat his dinner, go to bed. But when the son dies, look at what happened. Okay, say nothing. But when the child that died was a boy, he would beat my mother, then have his supper and lie down to sleep. So if it's a boy that dies, what the father does was to beat his mom, then have his food and go to bed. Ah, God, I just wonder how women in Egypt then suffer, sha. But it is well. My father never went to bed without supper, no matter what happened. So, in Papa must chop dinner before he sleep. Sometimes, when there was no food at home, when there was no food at home, I say, okay, we would all go to bed with empty stomachs, but he would never fail to have a meal. Even if there's no food at home, the father never fails to have a meal. If the children eat, if they didn't eat, that is not his business, but his orders that he must eat before he sleeps. Okay. But he never failed to, okay. My mother would hide his food from us at the bottom of one of the holes in the oven. He would sit eating alone while we watched him. One evening, I dared to stretch out my hand to his plate, but he struck me a sharp blow over the back of my fingers. I was so hungry that I could not cry. I sat in front of him, watching as he eats, my eyes following his hand from the moment his fingers plugged into the bowl until he rose into the air and carried the food into the mouth. His mouth was like that of that of a camel with a big opening and wide jaws. His upper jaw kept climbing down on his lower jaw with a loud grinding noise and showed through each nostril so thoroughly that we could hear his teeth striking against each other. His tongue kept rolling around and around in his mouth as though it also was chewing, darting out every now and then. to lick off some particles of food that had stuck to his lips or drop on his chin. At the end of his meal, my mother would bring him a glass of water. He drank it, then belched loudly, expelling the air from the mouth or belly with a prolonged noise. After that, he smoked his water pipe, filling the room around him with thick cloud of smoke, coughing, snorting, and inhaling deeply through his mouth and nose. Once over with his pipe, he lay down, and a moment later, the horde would resonate with his loud snoring. Interesting. I sensed it was not my father. Nobody told me, and I was not really aware of the fact. I could I could just feel it deep down inside me. I did not whisper the secret to anyone but kept it to myself. Every time my uncle came back for summer holidays, I would hang on to his calabia. When the time came for him to leave and asked that he take me with him, my uncle was closer to me than my father. He was not so old, and he allowed me to sit beside him and look at his books. He taught me the alphabet, and after my father died, he sent me to elementary school. So now this same uncle of his, whenever he comes home, she just likes staying around him because his uncle was closer to her. I'm sorry, rather not his her. Her uncle was closer to her than the father. He said when the dad died, because the father later died, so this same uncle of hers sent her to elementary school, that's primary school. So when my mother died, he took me with him to Cairo. Now, when the woman that the letter brought as the mother died, the uncle took her to Cairo. You understand? I sometimes wonder whether a person can be born twice. When I entered my uncle's dwelling, I put my head on a switch and light flooded the room. I shook my eyes against the glass and screamed. When I opened my lid again, I had a feeling of looking out through them for the first time. So this particular lady, she has not seen a light before. She doesn't want to know what it looks like. But when she later went to the Cairo with her uncle, she said she just put her hand on the switch and light came up. And it was her first time. She tried closing her eyes, thinking and all that. You know, the excitement in seeing what you've not seen before. So, okay. Since I knew that I had, in fact, been born some years before, I glanced myself in a mirror. This also had never happened to me before. At first, I did not know it was a mirror. I was frightened when I found myself looking at the little girl wearing a dress that reached down no further than her knees and a pair of shoes that hide her feet. I looked around the room. There was no one else in it apart from me. I could not understand where this girl had sprung from. Okay, so uh okay, now she said she went to the mirror, she stood there looking at herself. You know, she has not been in a mirror before, she hasn't seen a mirror before, just like someone coming from a very thick village. So she has not seen a mirror before, she has not been to a mirror before. So she just stood there looking, you know, trying to understand who that person was. Like, is it me? Oh my god, I've not seen, you know, the excitement and everything. Okay. Now realize that she could only be me. For I was always dressed in a long galabia which trailed down the ground, and no matter where I went, it was only barefoot. But I recognized my face immediately. Yet how could I be so sure it was my face since I had not seen myself in a mirror before? The room was empty, and the wardrobe mirror was right in front of me. This girl standing upright in it could only be me. The dress and the shoes had been bought by my uncle for me to wear in school. Yeah. I stood in front of the mirror, staring at my face. Who am I? Feathers? That is how they call me. The big round nose I got from my father, and the thin-lipped mouth from my mother. A sinking feeling went through my body. I neither liked the look of my nose nor the shape of my mouth. I thought my father had died, yet here he was alive in the big, ugly, rounded nose. Oh my goodness, this is so funny. Okay, she was talking about her looks, you know. So my mother too was dead, but continued to live in the form of this thin-lipped mountain. And here I was unchanged, the same feathers, but now clad in a dress and with shoe on her feet. I was filled with a deep hatred for the mirror. From that moment, I never looked into it again. Even when I stood in front of it, I was not seeing myself, but only combing my hair, or wiping my face, or adjusting the collar of my dress. Then I would pick up my satchel and race off to school. I love school. It was full of boys and girls. We played in the courtyard, gasping for breath as we ran from one end of it to the other, or sat spitting sunflower seed between our teeth in rapid succession, or chewed gum with a loud smacking noise, or bought moleless sugar stick with dry carob, or drank glucose and tamarind and sugar cane juice. In other words, we went for everything with a deliciously strong flavor. Once back, I would sweep and clean the house, wash my uncle's clothes, make his bed, and tidy his books. He bought me a heavy iron which I would heat on the kerosene stove and used to launder his kaftan and turban. Short, noisemakers. Shortly before sunset, he returned from Ehazar. I served supper and we ate it together. The meal over, I lay on my sofa while my uncle sat on his bed and breathed out loud. I used to jump out to his side on the high bed, coiled my fingers around his large hand with his long, mm, thin finger, and touch his great big books with their smooth, closely written pages covered in fine black letters. I would try to make out a few words. They looked to me like mysterious signs that filled me with something like fear. Ehazar was an awesome word people only by men. Okay, Ehazar was an awesome word peopled only by men, and my uncle was one of them. Was a man. When he read, his voice resonated with a sacred owl, and his great long fingers were seized with a strange trembling which I could feel under my hand. It was familiar, like a trembling experience in childhood, a distant dream still remembered. During the cold winter night, I coiled up in my uncle's arm like a baby in its womb. We drew warmth from our closeness. My face buried in his arms. I wanted to tell him that I loved him, but the words, the word would not come. I wanted to cry, but the tears would not flow. And after a while, I would fall into a deep sleep until morning. One day, I fell sick with fever. My uncle sat on the bed by my side, holding my head, patting my face gently with his great long finger, and I slept all night, holding onto his hand. When I was awarded my primary school certificate, he bought me a little wristwatch, and that night took me to the cinema. I saw a woman dancing. Her thighs were naked, and I saw a man hugging a woman. Then he kissed her on the lips. I hid my face behind my hand and did not dare to look at my uncle. Later, he told me that dancing was a sin, and that kissing a man too was a sin. But now I could no longer look into his eyes that night. When we returned home, I did not sit beside him on the bed as I often used to do before, but hide myself under the headroom and my little sofa. I was trembling over, seized with feeling I could not explain, that my uncle's great long fingers could draw close to me after a little while, and cautiously lift the endure under which I lay. Then his lips would touch my face and press down on my mouth. This same uncle that she's living with though. He said that my uncle's that okay that my uncle's great long finger would draw close to me. Say after the cinema, after they had done washing the cinema, that she said it go kissing, and the uncle told her that kissing was a sin, and whatever again was a sin. They said they got home, she couldn't look at the uncle's eyes and all that. She just started hiding from the uncle. Same uncle that said thank you. The same uncle that said it's a sin, oh. The same uncle that said it's a sin. Funny. Okay. 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 okay, draw close to me. After a little while, I could just leave the end, okay, under the couch I lay. Then he touched my face and pressed down to my mouth. The same uncle that said the same, oh. And his trembling fingers would feel their way slowly upwards over my thighs. I said they kiss her, and then they touch her. A strange thing was happening to me. Strange because it had never happened to me before, or because it had been happening. Imagine. She doesn't even understand what was happening to her. It is Russia all the time. Ever since I could remember, somewhere in some distant spot within my body was awakening an old pleasure. Strange things started happening to, like, when the uncle started, doing my grandma. Strange things now started happening to her. So she now started feeling the same pleasure she was feeling before and all that. You understand? Okay. Or a new pleasure still unknown and indefinable, for it seems to arise outside my body or in a part of my being severed from it many years ago. My uncle started to go out a lot. When I woke up in the morning, he would be gone, and when he came back at night, I would be in bed, fast asleep. If I brought him a glass of water or a plate of food, he would stretch out his hand and take it without looking at me. When I hide my head under the elbow, I would listen intently for the sound of his footsteps. I held my breath and pretended to be asleep, waiting for his fingers to reach out to me. Imagine. So the thing now starts waiting her. Oh, imagine. Sometimes she just feel like say, like she would just like say she did sleep. Where I say she not dey sleep, she just waiting for the uncle's finger on hand to start touching her. But it is well, sha. It is well. By sound of his regular talking. Then only was I assured that he had fallen asleep. He became a different man. He no longer read before going to sleep. Wow. He no longer read before going to sleep or wore his jabba and kaftan. Instead, he bought a suit and tie, found a post in the Ministry of War, and married the daughter of his teacher at El Hazar. He sent me to secondary school and took me with him to his new house. So that was so the uncle later became married, later married to his teacher's daughter. So when the uncle was leaving, he took her with him and sent her to secondary school, Tristan, where I lived with him and his wife. His wife was a short, fat woman. Ew! Stray bullets. But it is Hesha. Was a short, fat woman with a fair complexion. Her sluggish body swayed from the side to side when she walked, with the waddling movement of well-fed dog. Hey, gosh. Her voice was soft, not with gentleness, but with the softness born of cruelty. Her eyes were large and black with an extinguished vitality that left nothing but pools of dark, sleepy indifference. She never washed my uncle's feet, and he never beat her. Now, you see the difference? She never washed my uncle's feet, and he never beat her or spoke to her in a loud voice. He was extremely polite. Now I see the difference between the father and the uncle, but treated her with the peculiar kind of courtesy, devoid of true respect, which men preserve for women. I sensed that his feeling for her was more one of fear than of love, and that she came from a higher social class than his. When her father or one of the relatives paid us a visit, my uncle would buy meat or chicken, and the house would resonate with his laughter. But when his aunt arrived, dressed in her flowing peasant garments, her cracked hand showing through the openings of her long sleeves, he retreated into a corner without a word or even a smile. Chai, it is well. His aunt would sit next to me on the bed, weeping silently and mentioning how she regretted having sold her golden necklace in order to pay for his studies in El Hazar. The same under trending. But it's fine, Sha. In the morning, she would empty her basket of chicken, eggs, and bread cakes it contained, hook it over her arms and leaves. I would say to her, "Stay just another day with us, Grandma." But my uncle never said a word, and neither did his wife. Yeah. I went to school every day. Once back, I swept the house and washed the floor. The dishes and the clothes, my uncle's wife only did the cooking, leaving the pots and pans for me to score and clean later. My uncle brought home a small servant girl who slept in my room. The bed was reserved for me, so she slept on the floor. On a cold night, I told her to come and sleep with me in the bed. But when my uncle's wife entered the room and saw us, she beat her. Then she beat me also. One day, when I returned from school, I found my uncle looking very angry with me. His wife also seems to share his anger and continued to appear angry until he decided to take me away from the house with my clothes and books and put me in a boarding school section of the school. From then, from then on, I slept there at night. At the end of each week, the fathers, the mothers, yeah. Now, now women, as woman don't enter, just a minute, please. Minutes, I'll be right back. Just a minute. The uncle don't marry now, so come bring a house. The uncle don't marry now, so come bring a house help. Now you know how some women behave, so they don't like seeing their husband relatives and all that. So the uncle decided to put her in a boarding school. Now they're taking her out of the house and put her in a boarding school. This is her story. So still remember that this is the story she's telling to the researcher who came to see her in the prison. Okay, so during the weekend, other relatives will come visit them, or come visit other students, and sometimes take them home. Okay, I will look over the top of the high wall and watch them as they departed, my eyes following the people and the movement of the street like a prisoner, condemned to look out at life over the top of high prison wall. It is well, nobody the suffer starts. But I came to love school despite everything. There were new books, new subjects, and girls of my age with whom I used to study. We talked to one another about our lives, exchanged traits, secrets, and revealed our depths to one another. There was nobody to accept things for us except the superintendents who walked around the boarding house on tiptoe, spying on us day and night, listening to what we had to say. Even when we slept, she kept a vigilant eye on our every movement, followed us as a dream. If one of us so much as signed or emitted a sound or made the slightest movement in her dream, she would pounce on her like a bird on prey. I had a friend called Wafia. Her bed was next to mine. I would move my bed close up to hers after the lights went out, and we would talk until midnight. She spoke of a cousin with whom she was in love and whom in turn loved her, Anna. And I spoke of my hopes for the future. There was nothing in my past. There was nothing in my past or in my childhood to talk about, and no love for anything of the sort or the present. If I had something to say, therefore, it could only be concerning the future. So for the future was still mine to paint in the colors I desired, still mine to decide about freely and exchange as I saw fit. Sometimes I imagine that I would become a doctor or an engineer or a lawyer or a judge, or one day the whole school went on the street to join a big demonstration against the government. Suddenly, I found myself riding high up on the shoulders of a girl shouting, "Down with the government." Okay, we'll pause here for now. My phone is actually done. I'm going to resume the story by 4. This is almost okay. I'm resuming this story by 5 o'clock at dot. Yes, please bear with me. Wana Ambrose, thank you for joining my life. I really appreciate. So don't forget, see the title is still woman at point zero. Woman at point zero. So we are still at page 24. 24th page. So I'll be resuming the story again by 5 p.m. at dot. So by 5 p.m. I'll be back here. So we'll continue from where we stopped. So don't still forget that we are still talking about, she's still explaining her story to the visitor she had in the prison, because she was about to be killed that night. So this is her story. So we're still going to read her story to the end. It's a very, 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 very terrifying one. I don't know if I should call it terrifying. I don't know if I should call it heartbreaking one, but trust me, the book is very interesting. So we are still in page 25. So when I come back in the evening by 5 p.m. at dot, I will continue from page 25. Sorry, I'll continue from page, okay, just about page 24. When I come back in the evening, I really enjoyed the story. Thanks for the time also. You're welcome there. So when I come back by 5 p.m., we'll continue from page 25 to see what's happened next. Thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate the time. See you by 5 p.m. Bye. Have a lovely day ahead. Bye bye.